Welcome to the LOGSTAT, the Army's premier podcast on all things sustainment, where we analyze new developments, discuss current trends, and forge the path ahead for the next generation of sustainment soldiers. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the LOGSTAT. I'm your host, Captain Garett Pyle, coming at you again for another episode from the Army Sustainment Week. This time, we're going to be discussing the new concept of a light support battalion. Now, some of you have probably heard about that. Some others maybe just heard the acronym LSBs, and you're like, what is that? What do you mean? We don't have BSBs anymore, they're LSBs, so what is that? So today, I'll be sitting down with a unit who's went through that transition, through the transformation and contact, and went from a BSB now to an LSB, and seeing the firsthand perspective of what that's been like, how their unit is operating now, and what to expect if your unit is going to go through that. So with me today, I have with me the 626 Light Support Battalion of the 101st Division Sustainment Brigade, Battalion Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Adam Di Giovanni.
Hey, good afternoon, Garrett. Thank you for being doing this program and having me with you here today. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Adam Di Giovanni, and I have the proud distinction to be the commander of 626 LSB. I've kind of grown up in the 101st, so I started out there as a lieutenant in 4th Brigade Combat Team, 2506 Infantry, back when we had 4 brigades in divisions. And then I returned to the division as a major, where I served in the Division G5 as a brigade SPO for 1st Brigade in 426 BSB, and then finished out my time with the division there as a major as the Sustainment Brigade S3. And so when I had the chance to come back for command, 626 was at the top of the list. So I'm proud to be back there with the 101st. So had a fair amount of time being with the division and also supporting light units. So this is a good challenge for me, sir.
So wow, so it goes to the fact that, man, you can spend a big portion of your career in one place or in one division like that, and continue to move up. Because I know beforehand, being younger, when I was like a younger officer, like, you have to just jump around. You need to be at every single unit. But it's always good to see someone who's been very, I won't say the word specialized, but really got to be part of that culture, and from lieutenant years, you said, sir, majors now, and your colonel years being a battalion commander throughout the entire 101st, and really to see it your entire career and to see what that's been like for you.
Yeah, it's really awesome, Garrett, to be able to do that. I too kind of came up with this, the two competing schools of thought of being either the pentathlete, where you do light, you do heavy, you do striker, you do echelons above brigade, you do enterprise, or you kind of specialize in kind of one track. I had probably the best mentor I always had said, just do what you want to do in the Army, and the Army is going to tell you what to do when that's not possible. So I've been very fortunate that I've been able to come back to the 101st. My dad served in the 101st in Vietnam, so I always say I was a Screaming Eagle since from birth. And so it was really neat for me to be able to do that, and to be able to specialize a little bit in light logistics, which is a different problem set than what we even study here at the schoolhouse with looking at the heavy problem set.
That's really neat to have that family connection there as well.
Go ahead.
No, so what I was going to say though is when I how we introduced this, I said the 626 Light Support Battalion of the 101st Division Sustainment Brigade. So you're telling me you're not in its own brigade now, or you're not with its own brigade, you're with a division now. So kind of walk us through
Yeah. So this is probably the hardest part of RStruck for everyone. It was certainly the hardest part for me. We are no longer a part of 3rd Brigade 101st. We're no longer part of the Rakkasans by task organization or assignment. We are assigned to the 101st Division Sustainment Brigade. So the Sustainment Brigade grew to be the largest brigade on the installation, because it now has both the DSSB and the DSTB, which it always had. It retained those battalions, but then all 3 LSBs are now assigned to the DSB. We have a habitual direct support relationship with 3rd Mobile Brigade, the Rakkasans, and we were just, and then we have had 2 task organized exercises supporting the Rakkasans under a TACON a relationship, both for our division cumulative training exercise, Operation Lethal Eagle, that we did back in January, and then also we just finished up JRTC 2606 as part of Task Force Rakkasan. So what I tell everybody is we are absolutely lifeliners, but we also get to be on Team Rakkasan as well, which is kind of the best of both worlds. But it was a big cultural change for the organization.
I can only imagine what that was like. Now, did you have to change buildings? You still same footprint?
No, so thankfully we're in the same footprint, but one of the biggest things that the Rakkasans are known for is Tories, the big Tory monuments that we put everywhere and on everything. So as part of being part of the 101st DSB, their logo incorporates a Tory. It also incorporates the logos of the other brigades that the other LSBs support. For us, that's the spade, the heart, and the clubs. And so those are on the points of kind of our LSB logo, with the Tory being prominent in the southern point of that, still with its big red, decked out in red, so it so stands out. So culturally, we still maintain the Tory as one of our symbols, but it's now been integrated into kind of the rest of the battalion and brigade, iconography, which is kind of, it's more than just T-shirts, is what I say, right? So those symbols that we have in the Army, they matter, and they matter for identity. One of the great things I have with the Asurgam Battalion is we're actually the oldest battalion in the division. We trace our lineage back to a unit that was organized just 3 days after the division itself was organized in 1918, and we have only ever been assigned with the 101st throughout that entire time. So for us, we have the benefit of actually having a longer lineage and history than the Rakkasans or the Lifeliner Brigade. So we have a chance to kind of show that and try to rediscover some of that history, which has helped on the cultural front.
No, it's very unique the way that is, especially have that cultural history like that. And before we get more into that relationship, I know some of the audience would be like, so wait, I understand now you've changed, but what is an LSB?
Sure. Yeah. So an LSB is different from a BSB in a couple different ways. So most people might be familiar with the old structure, so I'll kind of look at that. So, but the first thing and the most prominent change is we no longer have forward support companies. We have combat logistics companies. And that change is more than just a name change. So we also changed some of our capabilities within those organizations, and they got a little smaller. The organization as a whole, the change from a brigade support battalion to a light support battalion is also substantial because we also drew down in our overall numbers as well. So we are lighter in just size, but also in capability. So one of the key capabilities that we changed is because we no longer provide support to the artillery battalion, who is now part of Divardi. We lost about 11.5 PLS systems that were primarily used to haul their third UBL of ammunition. So now that mission set has now transitioned over to the DSSB or other units within the Division Sustainment Brigade to provide that level of support to them. And that is something that we were one of the first organizations to actually exercise at JRTC last month, is really having that third UBL really kind of forecasted and delivered by the DSSB. We still served as their coordinating headquarters through our SPO shop because the Divardi SPO, which is coming as part of DSB 2.0, has not been fully stood up. So those are a couple changes there in both in capability and capacity. But the other part is the DSB has, so now we're kind of right-sized down to 3 CLCs, just one that has, each one having a habitual support relationships with the 3 infantry battalions, rifle battalions that are in the mobile brigade. The Cav Squadron divested, and so our Delta FSC completely went away. The Brigade Engineer Battalion transitioned to be a division signal battalion, and they got their own maintenance capability with that. So that our Echoes FSC or CLC also just divested, and that went away as well. And then our Fox FSC, which was supportive of the fires, transitioned over, and they are now organic to the fires battalion as well. So we went from a total of 6 FSCs down to 3 CLCs. Additionally, one of the other big structural impacts we had is we no longer have an HHC and an Alpha distribution company. Those two companies have merged together, and we have what's called a headquarters and distribution company, so an HDC. And that was somewhat of just kind of a scrunch the two organizations together. But like I said, one of the big changes was we had a reduction in lift capacity and break bulk cargo capability that came out of that as well.
It's like a super company.
It is. And so we also use our HDC to task organize all of my 92 Gulf cooks under HDC for better command and control. There are still about 24 cooks that are still technically aligned to each of the CLCs, 8 per CLC. But I've organized them all in HDC, so I have one commander for better command and control to enable that mission set, both in garrison and while we're out in the field as well. So that one company has almost 200 people in it.
So wow. So a couple points from that is, so first is when it comes to the field feeding capabilities for the CLC, is it just assault kitchens now for them?
Yes, yeah. So they just do when they're augmented with cooks, because like I said, I task organize them to my HDC. It is basically an assault kitchen and parts of a sanitation center and that kind of stuff. So no more CKs out that way. And also no more of the old K-Cliffs and K-Cliffies, if you're old enough to remember those, but all assault kitchen focused.
Okay, now does the CK still exist at the HDC?
They do. So we have one CK at the HDC that can provide support both for the base companies and then also brigades or any other separate or task organized entities that are built into a brigade combat team as a task organization rather than a formation.
All right, I can't imagine just think about it as a company commander standpoint, because it was always a thing of like, because I did my second command as an HHC, which was always nice because after having done my first command in an Echo FSC, then going to an HHC, it's learning a lot, sir, because you're managing, you help manage with the staff and everything.
And you're herding the cats.
You're herding cats. It's just a different dynamic. So now where that company commanders both has which was the Alpha Company mission, so the distribution mission, as well as everything comes with headquarters. So the complexities of that now.
Well, and one other big change that I missed is our maintenance company has transitioned from being a maintenance support company to a maintenance and supply company. So the SSA was removed from the distribution company and was retask organized under by RStruck. It's RStruck assigned now to the maintenance company. So they are an MSC, a maintenance and supply company. So the SSA has moved over there. So that also removed some of the people emission set before we smashed Alpha and HHC together.
So that's definitely very unique how you did it. So now the SSA is with maintenance now, which on one side help with parts, getting that alignment when it comes to parts, but then you're not having that direct communication with the distribution, because before, and I guess for an Alpha Company commander, it's very easy to manage that task now. So how have you seen that play out? Especially, we can get in the whole concept of base clusters and everything like that, but how does that new relationships work?
Yeah, so we've seen some good feedback, and to be clear, that was an RStruck change. That's not a task organization that I did, like the field feeding. I put all the field feeding there. That's a internal task organization. The SSA moving over is part of RStruck. But what we have seen is we've seen better OR rates associated with the decreased NMC S times. And now the mechanics now have a harder problem with saying, hey, we're waiting on the SSA or something, because it's their battle buddy right there, and it's in their same footprint. It's right behind, it's one building over from them and that kind of stuff. So there's some elements there. But what it also has done is also changed some of the focus of what your maintenance company winds up doing. So with the forklift assets that are associated with the SSA, they also now get tasked by the SPO to support a lot of cargo movements associated with that MHE capability. Additionally, for us in the 101st, what's different for us is we use air as our primary method of distribution. So the SSA is my primary rigging team. So the supplies come in, they then package them, rig them, prepare them, and then my maintenance company serves as the nucleus for my heavy PZ team to go out and then not just rig them, but inspect all the loads for everything going out there, and then put them on aircraft, and then do my hookup teams as well. So what it's done is it's kind of transitioned that mission set over to a different company than perhaps we've seen in the past.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. When it was a BSB and you were each supporting your own brigades, did you all have your own SSAs for that time?
Yeah, so that hasn't changed. Each LSB still maintains an SSA.
Okay.
And my SSA primarily supports the 3 rifle battalions of 3rd Brigade, 101st, the Rockasants. We have yet to transition over the 320th Fires Battalion. So I still hold their ASL right now. Eventually, that should move over with the alignment over to the Alpha DSSB SSA. Eventually, that should move over. We still have a couple supported units, which I think is important. I'm gonna spend a minute there. In sustainment, we always say we have customers, and I would argue we absolutely don't have customers. Burger King has customers, and customers are always right. And there's a power dynamic associated with the word customer. We have supported units, and supported units are teammates, they're partners. You're on a level playing field of mutual respect and capability. So, as I said before, there's power in iconography. There's also power in language. Sorry for the little tirade there, but
I think that's great. It's a good way to look at it, and I think you bring up a very good point for the sustainment community on the power dynamics of using the terminology customer, what that brings with it. Saying, hey, the customer is always right, because you think about the restaurant world. That's what you hear. But having that's your peer, that's who you're working with, that's your supported unit. So I like how you illustrated that for the community.
Well, I appreciate that, Garrett. Thanks. That was a big transition for my organization as well. I've had them purged from every SOP and every document we have. But because, like I said, I do believe in the power and language of what that is. But so back to the primary question was, yes, we still support 3rd Mobile Brigade as our primary supported units there. We do and will pick up an area support mission based off of whatever mission variables and assigned units based off of once we're deployed. And in garrison, we still maintain the Division Signal Battalion as well for the moment. But again, the Division Signal Battalion, the Division Engineer Battalion, and the Fires Battalions should all now be supported under the new larger SSA that's in Alpha of 129 DSSB for us in the 101st.
Okay, that's good, because I wasn't sure if you have all moved into one giant SSA now.
No. We have still done that. But as that drawdown happens, that's also part of us being a light support battalion. So right now we're at, I believe, nine BOH containers right now for my SSA. When I lost those additional LHS PLS platforms, I also lost some lift capacity for moving my SSA as well. So it's one thing that we talked about earlier in Sustainment Week is we have to still continue to draw down that excess Class 9, draw down some of those extra ASL lines that we are carrying, based off of the legacy support structure of who was there. And that will help us be a lighter organization that is more mobile. Our final MTO, I believe, is about 530 people, which is down from what a BSB used to be when we had all of our companies there. We were around 800 or so, maybe a little bit north of 800. So it's a big difference.
Has anything changed with the Charlie Med?
No, so Charlie Med has largely remained unchanged in both their mission and their structure. I think the Medical Center of Excellence is still kind of examining, waiting for the dust to settle a little bit before they kind of start their changes. So their mission setting capability has remained the same. One of the biggest things for me is the division. So I took command last June, June of 25, and the division, so to say, snapped the chalk line on transformation and moving to the new force structure in January of 2025. So nominally, the battalion had been in some state of transition for about 6 months before I took over. A lot of that just due to the way that systems and processes had to catch up. We had changed names, but we hadn't really changed a whole lot else. So over the past, 10 months being in command and getting ready for a CTC rotation, we've really had to work through a lot of trial and error of really kind of what works, what doesn't work, and then really try to formalize what was transformation in contact and turn that really into, this is our structure. The Army slapped the table on it. So how do we make what the Army is telling us to do work in the way that they're also telling us to fight?
Trial by fire.
Trial by fire is right, but we spent a lot of time in the field doing this before we hit JRTC. There's a lot of goodness to that, but there's also a lot of strain on the organization. We spent about 60 days in the field between August and February. That's a pretty brisk clip. To get us ready for JRTC, and then another 30 days out JRTC. So we put a lot of time into it. I would argue that we're probably better at operating in some of the field constructs than we are at the garrison constructs. So we're actually still working through those things. Because one of the other challenges I had when I first took command is my brigade headquarters was deployed to the southern border. So they got back, really about the end of October. So they've only been back with us, really going on about 6 months. So at least the first 4 to 5 months of being in command, trying to figure stuff out, the organization lacked, having our brigade headquarters there to help us through that.
Okay. So we've worked through, painting that picture of what an LSB is, and kind of going back to some of this relationships now for some clarification. These CLCs, are they, especially when it comes to the command relationships, are they located with those battalions like an FSC was? Are they with you now and they just go out when they need the battalions need support? Like, how does that work in that relationship now?
Yeah, so it's important to note there is no command relationship there. It is only a support relationship. So they fight in a habitual direct support relationship, but I control that as the senior sustainer within the task force. And that's ultimately given to me by the senior sustainer in the division, the DSB commander. So they typically fight in a direct support role. And that is most prevalent in the maintenance role because a lot of that is just the systems that we use to do maintenance are generally aligned to where you can only support one UIC at a time. Or, the one main UIC and then the, company derivatives from there. So that's probably the hardest part to kind of change. But what a direct support relationship does is it allows me to mass sustainment in support of the main effort. And it allows me to mass sustainment at the point of need. So one of the key examples that I used is, or that I recently saw is at JRTC when we did PZ operations for a large scale air assault, we're servicing over 50 aircraft, 3 periods of darkness. Well over 100 sustainment loads and sling loads going out over that time. That was a battalion effort. My Bravo company was, kind of formed the nucleus of a task force heavy for heavy PZ. But that took every distribution platoon that I had in the battalion to mass on that problem. It took augmentation from maintenance to support not just the infantry equipment that was going out and preparing to air assault and GAC in, but to also mass on just running forklifts and moving loads on the PZ. And that's something that previously would not have been able to be done. Additionally, we also run FARPs in the 101st. Every LSB and every company has to be able to run a FARP. So we ran a 6-point FARP out, a 4-point FARP out during this organization while we were tied in with the CAB. They provided an additional 6 points for this. But when we were at our division cumulative training exercise, Operation Lethal Eagle, I had command and control of all of the FARPs as well. So I had elements from the aviation brigade, from the CAB coming in. I also had elements from 5th group, 5th GSB that augmented. So I have 3 different, and then I had my own organization there. All the FARP organizations and operations were command and controlled by my battalion and my battalion staff, in addition to all the PZ operations. So that's something that's a little bit more unique. And the only way you can do that is when you mass all of your sustainment at one place. You can't do that with a command relationship, or without having to go to ask my peers to get my soldiers to come do a mission for them. Instead, what I do is my SPO shop helps analyze whatever requirements they have. And we say, okay, in this phase of the operation, you don't get direct support, you get general support. And so someone will come and bring you fuel. Someone will come and bring you food. This is your grid to load up. Be there or be square, right? It's not necessarily their CLC.
Okay. So having lived through this now, going from a BSB to an LSB, how have you seen this change, the world of sustainment?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel through this? Like, do you feel like this is making us more lethal, more effective now? Like what's some of the pros and cons have you seen?
Yeah. So, overall, I absolutely believe that this is the right thing to do. The Army got this right as it pertains to the division being the unit of action, right? I know we're not supposed to say unit of action, but a division-centric Army again, as opposed to a BCT-centric Army that we've had, over the last 20 years or so. What this does is not only does it allow me to mass sustainment at the point of need, but it allows the division commander to have greater flexibility and options that the DSB commander can then provide to him for division level operations. If you look only through the soda straw lens of, well, my brigade can't do this or my brigade can't do that, one, I think that's just a little bit of like sour grapes, and some people are guilty of that. I think that's it. But the best brigade commanders, and thankfully, I get to work for one of those, both in the DSB and in Rakuten. They understand it's not about what you lose, but it's about what you gain. So likewise, when 3rd Brigade is the division main effort, then I get reinforced with people out of 426 and 526. I get additional assets that are, pre-positioned with me to help sustain the fight, or provide additional capacity or additional lift. And so that's a net gain for the organization. Now, likewise, there's also going to be times in the the overall operational tempo where 3rd Brigade won't be the priority. And so I'm going to have to go support somebody else. Again, I think that's just a maturity of commanders. And what I would say is we have an embarrassment of talent at the 0506 level right now. And I think the folks we have now have the mental agility to understand these things and not really kind of get into the food fights of who's mine and who's not mine. So I definitely think we got it right there. There's no daylight in between me and any of the battalion commanders within 3rd Mobile Brigade. I've served with these guys before at the 04 level and 05 level. Our children go to the same school. We live on post. We get together. We hang out on Friday nights. There's no issue there that cannot be solved. What I will say is there is some staff friction from point to point. It's not at the commander level, it's at the staff level. Because for a BCT or now mobile brigade staff, it was definitely easier to task instead of ask for support. But I think as the force continues to get used to this formation and gets used to the support relationship, it will evolve and those things will get better. We've certainly seen that just in my time. So the direct support relationship, I think, is tough at times. But as a sustainer, we all know you have to have, you always have two bosses. You always do. It didn't really matter. Even when we were in a BCT structure, a good BSB commander was still tied in with the DSB, right? And if they weren't, they were probably doing so at their own peril because they're not going to have the maximum effects for the unit they're supporting because you're just not tied into the broader sustainment team that we have available to them. So the guys that I've seen that had trouble were the ones that were very myopic about, well, it's me, my. The guys who understood, hey, it's about the team. How can I help? How can I be a good teammate? Even if that makes it hurt a little bit for me, those are the guys that I wanted to be like, that I wanted to emulate.
Nice. So you've lived through this for a time now, and you got to do a rotation at JRTC through this. Can you kind of walk us through what that was like going through a CTC rotation with this new formation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were the first LSB to go take on. Previous rotation in the 101st had gone OPCON. So the key distinction there for everyone, just don't want to assault anybody's intelligence, but with OPCON, you can further retask organize below the level. At TACON, you can't. So the parent organization retains that authority. With me going TACON to the Rakkasans, they could not further task organize my organization. So they could not direct that the CLCs be attached or OPCON or TACON to those maneuver units. So I got to choose the appropriate relationship to meet the support requirements there. So that was a huge difference for us. What that meant was that one of the things that we noticed is based off of terrain, our CTCP footprints needed to be much smaller. Now, with the CLCs being smaller, some of that was already taken care of for us. However, when you're in some narrow or canalizing terrain, particularly in the southern corridor, the south side of Red Leg Lake, if you know the map at JRTC, the battalion commander that we were supporting there said, hey, I don't have much room or to really have a large or robust CTCP. So I really am just looking for a hippo and some fuel, right? So a little bit of water, a little bit of fuel there. So in that specific relationship, because it was only 4 service members and 2 vehicles, I opted to have a take-on relationship for just that small section, just because it was better care and feeding of soldiers, right? But the rest of that company remained in direct support, so they were able to give priorities to that company. But they were housed with me in one of my BSA clusters. So we split our BSA into 2 clusters for better command and control. And then the CLCs had their FTCP within those clusters. And they also had a base defense bill that they had to pay associated with that for being tenant organizations. And with having a, quote, heavy FTCP footprint, not only did they have big capabilities, they also had more of their soldiers there. So for my other 2 CLCs that were up in the northern axis of advance, north of Red Leg Lake, they had slightly larger CTCPs, but my largest CTCP only had about 20 soldiers forward at it of the 45 or so that they brought down to JRTC. As I mentioned, the size of CLCs have gotten smaller, so a CLC when they're fully manned is only 62 soldiers, so it's about the size of a tank company.
That is much smaller than what an FSC was.
That's correct. And particularly for in the light world, I remember when I was a platoon leader back in the 101st, my light FSC had 52 soldiers MTO'd, including me and the platoon sergeant. My distro platoons now in a CLC have 14 soldiers, including the PL and the platoon sergeant. So that's 6 soldiers. That's 12 soldiers. That's 6 trucks.
Wow.
That's crazy. But when I was there, I had troop transportation, I had water, I had fuel, I had a much more robust capability. So one of the things when you talk, has the Army gotten this right overall? I do believe in terms of the relationships and the command assignments, we've definitely gotten it right. I do think there's still some work to do on the force structure, because I don't know that a CLC really maintains enough of the capability that we really need it to have, particularly in distribution. So I think there's some other options with that. I know CASCOM, I won't get ahead of all the force structure guys, but they've had various designs and opportunities on that to kind of look and explore that. They probably know better than I do. But what I would say is I don't know if CLCs need to still be in the future. I think maybe there's a place where, perhaps half of the maintenance platoon transitions to be organic to the HHC of the infantry battalion, much like the old support platoon concept. And then what's left of that maintenance capacity comes back and you have a beefier maintenance supply company. And then the transportation and distribution capability that we have over those 3 CLCs, perhaps that comes and forms a different capability within the formation.
Yeah, sometimes, going back to the way units were built, as you say, back in the day, like I'm going through all these old articles, as a Hardy fellow right now, and just especially during this, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when there was, large scale combat operations, that was what we were training for. And I tell people, hey, we just need to pull these off the shelf. So much of what we're doing right now has been either written about, we've done before, we've trained on. We went through, 20 plus years of corn operations, but now we're going back to what we were training. So this interested school of thought of like, maybe these maintenance can go back to being organic. These infantry battalions having their own organic units.
And I think that's, at least for a mobile brigade, I think that's probably the appropriate focus to do that. I do think centralized distribution still makes a whole lot of sense because that allows me to mass appropriately when and where it's needed. Because they're mobile now, they don't really need any sort of troop transportation or lift. They have their ISVs to do that, and the company organic LMTV that they have for each supply sergeant or whatever. That's good for CASEVAC operations and those types of things. So I definitely think there's still some room for us to keep working on that as a sustainment organization, a sustainment community, I should say.
And that's part of what we're doing here with the podcast. People writing about their experiences is to continue that dialogue. Is so that we don't exist in a vacuum, that people tell their stories. They can say, hey, this is what worked for me, this is what didn't work for me, so that we can continue to grow and develop. And then sometimes you might find out where this formation, even though they're both mobile brigade combat teams, like just because of the culture and the nature of how they're operating or the environment they're designed to operate with, the formation might look a little bit different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People tend to forget that the M in MTO means modified. And so mine can look a little different than somebody else's. I know that's a little sacrilegious perhaps to the force developers, but and it certainly makes their job harder. And I acknowledge that. But sometimes, being a little different is the right thing to do. And I like I said, I don't want to beat them up in any way. They have a very, very, very tough job to try to do that. But I do think there's definitely room for that. One other thing that I think is really the goodness of our struct that perhaps we didn't realize is that now battalion XOs of those infantry battalions and battalion S4s now understand that they are the maintenance managers. You can't just rely on, your warrant officer and, down in the FSC, you'd be like, oh, well, he runs maintenance. No, he doesn't. He's a company level officer that's operating under the direction and training of a company commander and as a CLC to be that, if you will, senior logistician that helps advise that task force. But the maintenance program has to be owned by that commander. That's part of what leads me to the idea of like, well, maybe they need their own organic capability, because it's hard to own. It is hard to own an entire program and have that responsibility and really put your own battalion culture on it when you're in their case, they're asking me for their mechanics, so to say. So it is definitely a partnership. But I think one of the unintended consequences, though, is you now have infantry battalions that are running their own CTCPs. That hasn't just fallen as an additional duty onto the FSC commander. Because now the CLC commander, when he comes up there, or the XO, however you choose to fight it, is up there, they're kind of a tenant in the CTCP. They're bringing a small portion of capability of that broader CTCP that includes, the battalion organic role 1. And, we've seen a lot of the infantry battalions kind of mass their LMTVs in one place to try to do CASEVAC or, replacement operations with soldiers and that type of stuff. But that's all managed at the battalion level, and that's no longer just an FSC mission that they have to do. So I think there's some real goodness there. But the other part is, and to some degree, the 101st has always been like this. But I will say, as a sustainer, sometimes I feel like we have a tendency to kind of say, "Poor me, no one cares about sustainment." And what I can tell you is that is not the case in the 101st. When we do a sustainment rehearsal, at the division level, we have the CG or one of the DCGs there, and brigade commanders show up to it from all the brigades, not just the sustainment brigade. When we do a brigade level sustainment rehearsal, I have the supported brigade commander there. I have battalion commanders. I have battalion XOs, infantry battalion XOs, briefing on the map, not just FSC commanders. I have battalion S4s doing this. We have infantry platoon sergeants, sometimes all the way down to squad leaders, talking about how they're getting water from the blivet or from the 5-gallon can that we sling loaded in, all the way down to the canteen, and then how they backhaul that equipment all the way back, because they understand that we can't just say we care about sustainment. We actually have to do the things, and we got to do the backhaul. So I am incredibly fortunate that I don't have to deal with that. And so what I'd offer to most of, to a lot of the community is, I think sometimes we just have to take our own seat at the table, and just pull up a chair and say, "Hey guys, we are a co-equal warfighting function just like any other, and we help enable all of these other ones, just like they help enable us to do what we have to do." And it really is about that partnership. So I think R-Struck has helped further that narrative, at least within the division, in a way that we haven't seen, or perhaps didn't necessarily intend for that to do. But I definitely think there's been some good a lot of unintended goodness there.
Well, there's definitely a good key to your success right now. It's just having those leaders active, not just there, but being active
Absolutely
in those rehearsals and what the difference that makes. So I'm really glad to see how your unit has built that culture, and that's what it comes to, is having that as a culture.
Absolutely.
For your formation, so everybody has that expectations, they know that, and they have a common understanding of what support they're going to get across the battlefield.
Absolutely.
So just the impact that's made for you all.
Well, and it translates into everything, right? It translates into, daily log syncs, and having a brigade S3 on the log sync, and having the battalion SPO or brigade SPO being a part of the op sync, and not just as a visitor, not just as I'm listening into the meeting, but they have a briefing role in both of those meetings. It's having SPO representation in the targeted working group, so that in the morning when we're talking about what we want to kill 120 hours out, we align munitions to do that. We start programming them in. Then we go a couple hours later into the log sync, where we start aligning the movements for those commodities against those requirements 120, 96, 72 hours out. And then the op sync, where we are locking those in with orders that are then captured in the nightly frago. So having R-Struck be a driver of this, I think reinforced a lot of the best practices that units did. And like I said, I'm incredibly fortunate to work with partners and brigade commanders, both infantry and sustainment, who care.
Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for those who they're about to go through this, or they're in the middle of it, from your position as battalion commander or sergeant major side of the house, all the way down to the most junior soldier? Like, what advice do you have for them? That's, hey, here it is, you're changing, you're going from a BSB to LSB. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I think I would offer a couple things. Number one is change is hard, and it doesn't get easier the more you wait on it. So I would say attack it head on, and leaders lead through change. So that's kind of why we have the job there. So the cultural change is going to be the hardest. The structure stuff you'll figure out pretty easy. But how do you transition from your culture and your identity of being a part of a BCT that was generally just focused on one thing, to being a part of something larger than you, a sustainment brigade that's larger than just one brigade that takes care of the whole division. So one, I would say, understand that change is hard, but embrace it and lead through it. Number two, buckle up. It's a wild ride. It's going to be bumpy. You're gonna hit some things, and you'll have some tough conversations. Your majors will be in the trenches every day because they have to now they have to coordinate and talk with 2 different brigades about stuff. And it's more than just like an AdCon relationship with the DSB where you can just throw your XO at that and just say, okay, well, you handle just all the admin stuff. And SPO, you handle all the operational stuff, so you go to all the brigade meetings. They really have to be engaged in both fronts on both of those. So your field grades are going to have a hard time. Being an iron major just got a little harder. For those of us who are through that, I'm glad I did not have to do that. My job was significantly easier having to do that. But so buckle up. It'll be bumpy. Be ready for some of those hard field grade conversations. And then from the talent management and manning side, since you mentioned the sergeant major, you got to be able to talk to the DSB sergeant major and start building that relationship and start working that personnel talent management. It's really hard for that brigade sergeant major to now manage 5 or 6 battalions and be able to talent manage first sergeants. And master sergeants all the way down to that level. So that's really hard as well. And then I guess the last piece of advice I would say is, sometimes you just got to push the I believe button, right? And you need to push the I believe button that the Army's got this right. It's hard, but that's why we have the job, right? Is what I would say. So, leaders lead through change. And just take it head on, but buckle up. It'll be bumpy.
Is anything we missed today you wanted to talk about when it comes to the LSB and all this transformation?
Yeah, so I think the only other thing I would mention is, being an LSB requires more than just a name change. And so I talked about a little bit of what those capabilities mean. But until you internalize that and really kind of understand, like, hey, this is what that means. So it wasn't until I really started going through the MTO and I realized, hey, I lost 11 and a half systems for transportation and break bulk cargo, that I'm like, hey, why? And that's what led me to understand that, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to support the artillery battalion anymore. That's where those trucks used to go to. So that's just one example of understanding that light means light for a reason. And if we keep trying to do what we did, even in garrison as a BSB, you won't have enough hours in the day. You won't have enough people to do this, and you'll wind up killing your formation. Mm-hmm. And so that takes engagement at the commander and sergeant major level, and really even beyond us at the senior leader level, to start having a recognition like, hey, we have to move the expectation with the force structure so that we can do that. And as you draw down from people, that'll be the biggest thing, is you'll slowly start dwindling down. But if you don't start turning off those mission sets, you're going to quickly run out of time to do it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Well, thank you very much for that, sir. You've given us a lot of wisdom and advice through transitioning from a BSB to an LSB, everything that you've witnessed. So really appreciate all of that for today's conversation. And I always give my guests an opportunity to more advice, but just about sort of the sustainment community. I always say this is your free chicken, so to speak. It doesn't have to be about the LSB, but what advice do you have from your years of experience? You've been, especially very specialized, as you said, with the 101st, but what could you give out to the community as a whole?
Yeah, so Garrett, I appreciate that opportunity. And look, number one, don't be afraid to say that you're a heavy guy or you're a light guy, is what I would say. Or you're that pentathlete, right? Do what you want to do, and go where you want to go, but always be committed to the team that you're on. Always remember, even if it's not the assignment you chose, right? As the song goes, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. So be invested in your organization. I think that's what professionals do. And what I would offer is that's when I say investing in your organization, that's everything from buying the t-shirt, right? So buy the t-shirt of the organization you're in, and show that you're a part of that. Take some time to understand the history of the organization you're going to, and understand where you came from so you can understand where you're going. And then investing in the organization also means like showing up for the fundatory events, right? So when you do the hail and farewell, when you do the battalion ball or the brigade ball or the officer call, right? Show up and be a part of that organization and show you're there. And then the very last thing that I would say is the Army is easy, right? It's easy because everything you need to do in the Army is written down in a book, and all those books are written at the 8th grade level. So I honestly believe I've made a career out of just doing what the Army tells me to do. And then just trying to do it the way the Army told me to do it. So the doctrine solution, while it might be boring, it gives you the 80% solution that works 80% of the time. And so if you do that, you'll quickly realize you don't always have a training problem. Oftentimes you have a reading problem. So my last little quip that I would say is leaders are readers. And if you want to be good at your profession, and our profession is the profession of arms, and supporting forces that close with and destroy the enemy in close combat, you got to read the books. And the books that are important to you are FM 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, and 7.0. So you can understand the unifying logic of the organization and operations. You can understand your craft, how you support that. You can understand how staffs train and certify. You can understand command and control. And then you can understand the training methodology that we're supposed to follow in order to train and certify troops to standard using, TNOEs or TE&Os to make sure we do that to standard. So that's my elevator pitch there. And then the last one is when you're ready to step up, come throw your hat in the ring. We want you at the 101st. So.
Well, I love that, sir. I just love how you put that. We have the answers to the test. We literally just got to pull that book off the shelf and be able to read it. You said 80% of the solution, 80% of the time. I just love how you put that. And it's true. We just need to get out there, absorb that information so that we can be able to execute it. That's the big part of why we're doing podcasts like this, why it's so important to write about your experience and get it published like journals like the Army Sustainment, so we can continue to share that knowledge to sharpen each of our toolkits. Absolutely. And just really appreciate the conversation today. Like someone like myself who's about to be a major, where can I reach out to someone like yourself? So, who knows, I might be in a unit coming down the road very quickly as a major who could go from a BSB to an LSB. So where can people reach out to you to send their cards and letters?
Yeah, great. Or hate mail as it might be. No, so I'm easy to find. I'm on Global, Di Giovanni. If you start with DI space and then G, I should be the first one that popped up. I do have social media, stuff, but I use email far more frequently. So just shoot me a line. I'm happy to help anywhere I can.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sitting down today. I know it's been a busy sustainment week, but thank you, sir, for taking the time to sit down with me.
Hey, I appreciate you having me here, Garrett.
Of course. So there you have it, folks. Another great episode. We finally got the chance to sit down, seeing firsthand what it's like for a unit to go from a BSB to an LSB. So really got to see how that works. As we say, the good, bad, and the ugly of everything, but really good lessons learned, especially how if you're out there right now and you're going through this, some good resources for you. So highly suggest taking a chance to, reach out to individuals like today who've experienced it so that you can be able to execute and be able to sprint to the finish line as you're going from a BSB to an LSB. And please write about your experience. We want to hear what it's like for you, what your experience was like, so that we don't exist, in a rabbit hole. Like, we can continue to tell our story across. Reach out to us so we can get you on a podcast as well to hear what your formation was like. But that is all we have today, folks. As always, Sustainable Leaders start here. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the LOGSTAT. We hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation. Please share this episode across your formation and leave us a review. If you have a topic that you'd like to discuss, please reach out to us at armysustainment@army.mil or directly to me on global at steven.m.dinero.mil@army.mil or on Teams at Major Stephen M. Dinero. See you next time. Sustainment Leaders start here.